Hello, welcome to Revive and Rise. I'm your host, Melody Parrish, and I want to thank you so much for joining us today. Today in this episode, we're going to be talking about all or nothing thinking. And we're going to be going over some signs, examples. We're going to be talking about causes. We're going to be talking about the impacts to our mental health, to our relationships. And then we're going to talk about maybe techniques or strategies that we can use to help us break this pattern of thinking, maybe reframing the way we think of things or something like that. So I wanted to start by giving a little like a little definition session or whatever, just to get us familiar with the verbiage, familiar with the ideas, and then I'll share a personal example. I'll share my personal story and struggle with the all or nothing thinking and things that maybe have helped me to begin to get out of this idea of thinking. So when we talk about the common signs or examples of this way of thinking, all or nothing thinking it's also called like black and white types of thinking or having a black and white mindset where situations are viewed as perfect successes or total failures. It's always or never. It's using absolute terms. Things like, I never do anything right. I never make the right decision. Or things like, I always fail, or I'm always stupid. Those kinds of things. That's the type of thinking patterns that we're talking about here. And some examples of these types of thinking patterns. Perfectionism can start to form a way of viewing things that small mistakes can just ruin everything. And if you think about, let's give the example of a diet, because most people understand, what a diet is and what it entails. But what happens if you're structured on your diet, eating everything that you're supposed to eat, and then maybe a month after you've started, you're going by a bakery and you see these cookies that are just amazing, and you walk by and they offer samples, and so you just grab one and devour that sample cookie, and you say, oh, it's so good. So you go and get another sample, and then you're like, oh, just this once, I'll buy the cookie, and you eat it, and then you automatically feel guilty. And then you automatically say, well, I have just ruined my diet, so there's no point. So many times people with these types of thinking patterns will just quit. It's just, oh, my diet's ruined, I'm done. It's not oh, I made a mistake, let me course correct and try again kind of thing. But it's just oh, I'm done. It's ruined. Not done. Not going to try anymore. So it's that type of perfectionism and that type of thinking where we see something as or we see a success as an all. And if we make a mistake, then it's all gone, kind of thing. And then, and you have the all or nothing dichotomy. Everything is either or situations are either all good or all bad. It's an always or a never kind of thinking. So things are either all good or all bad, and we need to start to the first thing we need to start to understand is that there's nothing that is all good or all bad. Everything, be it a situation, be it a person, whatever it may be, has both good and bad in it. It at any point in time. That's just the way that life works. Nothing is totally good or totally bad. And we need to start to understand that for sure. When you think about what can the outcomes of the all or nothing thinking, and we touched on perfectionism, but because of that perfectionism, you can start setting unrealistic goals for yourself and have high standards for yourself that really lead to harsh self-judgment and self-criticism, which can further lead to increased anxiety and increased depression. And we learn and we know that a lot of our mental struggles build on each other and compound on each other and just grow. And so a lot of things are just tied into each other and interwoven. And so when we talk about the all or nothing thinking and the perfectionism that it causes, the high standards that it causes, that dips into the self-criticism, the self-judgment, and then ends up with increasing anxiety and increasing depression. And that's because, we've set this high standard now. We can't achieve it, so therefore we must be terrible people. We must, like, for example, if you say that if you get an A, you're smart. If you have that type of thinking, to be smart, you have to get an A, or you have to score an A on a test, and you score a B. Then with this type of thinking, you begin to say, I didn't reach my goal. I didn't get an A, so I'm not smart. I am stupid. And therefore, this isn't going to happen. This isn't going to happen. I'm not going to be able to do this. I'm not going to be successful in this. I'm not going to do. And you start to kind of cycle around. And then because of that, you get really anxious and you get worried. And then you fall into a depression because I'm not smart. I'm not good enough. I can't do this. Just builds up around it. So it's all tied together. And the best thing we can do is to target one thing at a time when we're trying to reverse these ideas. But these ideas can even come, this all or nothing thinking can come from trauma as well, from past experiences that may shape how we perceive threats and safety, and which lead to rigid ways of thinking, the all or nothing thinking, which can be, this will always be a safe space. This will never be a safe space. And that can be geographical space, but that can also be like a space with a group of people or a space in society. It can be a wide variety of things, but with trauma, it comes that whole idea of this is safe, this is always safe, this is never safe. And again, those all or nothing ideas are not true. There's always safety and non-safety in the same area. And we need to remember that. And I think that this all or nothing, again, it can get in our heads, and it can it can cause us to discount our strengths. It can cause us to magnify our flaws, and it can cause us to lower our self-esteem and to develop a low self-worth. And I think that's what a lot of people struggle with. I know that's what I struggled with, and I continue to struggle with. But in that, when we talk about that all or nothing, and we talk about those absolute terms, when we start thinking about the way we react to the world, the way we view the world, that can really have a significant effect on us, because we start to think of things and situations and ideas of being like a high stakes scenario. We start to think of things this way, and it increases our anxiety, increases our stress that we work with throughout the day. So if we increase our stress and increase our anxiety, that affects a lot of the things we do and a lot of our relationships. These ideas can cause conflict between people, and the way people see each other and interact with each other, especially when you think things are entirely good, people are entirely good, or they're entirely bad. We lose a lot of I think, depth and richness in our world when we tend to look at things that way, as people being entirely good or entirely bad. We miss out on a lot of opportunities, a lot of growth and opportunities to learn from each other. When we look at people as entirely good, then we're extremely disappointed when we learn that they're not entirely good, because no person can be entirely good. No person can be entirely bad. There's mixed in every person, good and bad. And the quicker that we acknowledge that and recognize that, and that we're able to see that, then the more open and complete our relationships can be, and we can see things clearly, and we can understand things, and we can offer people a little more grace, and offer people more acceptance, and our lives can be really enriched from relationships when we don't close ourselves off like that. I feel like that's very important, especially in the times that we're living in right now. We shouldn't close off people entirely, like we're doing. And also, when you're thinking about this all or nothing thinking, it can also be detrimental to performance, and our performance of different tasks that we may have, of different goals that we set for ourselves. We may never even start the path towards a goal, because we don't think that we can complete it perfectly, so why bother? And that becomes that's such a sad thing. If you think about all of the goals that people could have reached but were too afraid to start, and they were afraid to start because they were afraid they could not complete them perfectly. When we look at social media is a great thing. It has its great pros and cons. It keeps us connected in a way that we couldn't before. You wouldn't know what was happening with your family or your friends, or maybe intimate moments, or things like when your cousin has her baby, or your nephew's first steps, or things like that, when we couldn't join in or we couldn't be present. Now we can with social media, and that keeping us connected in that way is fantastic. And that's one of the good things about social media. But one of the really bad things I feel like is that social media helps feed into this all or nothing thinking and these patterns that develop, because we see people that supposedly have these perfect lives. We see these people that have taken pictures and have these wonderful things to say, but what's left out is what it took to take that picture. And just because there's that picture, that doesn't mean that there wasn't a struggle, and there isn't a struggle behind that picture. And I feel like that's a lot of the problem today, is that we see this and we automatically think we fail. Oh, this is not what my family looks like. This is not what my career looks like. This is not what I look like. So therefore, I'm a failure. Therefore, I'm not good enough. Therefore, why do I even bother? Kind of thing. Or, for example, with families, oh, well, I don't bake the cookies. I don't do all these different things that I should, and therefore I'm a bad mother. Or, I don't have things all together. I don't have all the answers. Therefore, I'm a bad father, or I'm a bad husband, or I'm a bad partner. There can be a million ways that we put ourselves down because of social media. So we need to acknowledge that, yes, that's great that person is in this wonderful spot, but what did it take to get there? And that brings me to another thing. A lot of people, I feel, tend to think that that things come easy, that success comes easy, even if we don't openly think that. Sometimes we subconsciously think that. And we're like, I must be doing something wrong because this is so hard. And since it's so difficult for me, maybe I'm not supposed to be doing this. Maybe I'm supposed to be doing something different. Because, again, good things are not hard. And that kind of thinking really, it's really detrimental to our health, because when we think about that, success is nothing but struggles. I feel like there is nothing about success that is easy. And if you look at any of these people, well, first of all, what matters is what success means to you. Success means something different to every person. But when you talk to people that are at the highest point of their career, they're very successful. They will tell you all of the times that they failed. all of the times that they struggled, and it was a lot. For example, you can think of Kevin Hart being a very successful comedian, but in order to get to where he is, somebody was talking to him in an interview, and he said that he had over 3,000 no's. He heard 3,000 no's and 3,000, sorry, you're just not good enough for our program, or sorry, you're not going to make it. Over 3,000 of those. And now he's one of the most successful comedians in the world. But it just depends on what you think success is and what its value is to you. It's different. But when you think about success in your career, you can think of things like that, and you can definitely see where that could be influenced. Because if he was to think that, okay, well, they said no, I'm not going to do this anymore. I mean, what a terrible thing for the world. The world would have missed out on so much. We would have missed out on so much joy and laughter that he has brought us. And that's the thing. This whole all or nothing thinking can do. If you think about it, how many projects have not been started because you didn't think that you could do it in one shot? You didn't think you could do it perfectly, so you just didn't try. You just didn't start. So the first thing I would say is that we need to reframe our ideas and change our perspectives a little bit. And this can be simple things, small things, but just to understand that just because someone's successful, just because someone is in a wonderful place in their lives, just because, these good things are happening, it doesn't mean that it didn't take a while to get there. It doesn't mean that there weren't steps involved to get there. It's not like that person went from 0 to 100 and there they are. It took many steps, not A to Z, but A, B, C, D, and on Z. And we need to really start to think that and learn that and understand that before we can even think about wrapping our head around changing this pattern of thinking and this mindset that's created by this pattern of thinking. I can talk about my personal experiences. Many people by now know some of my stories and my struggles that I've had. I've been very open with those. And when we talk about the all or nothing thinking pattern, I definitely had it. I learned it at a young age. I think now we're not constantly, I shouldn't say constantly bombarded, because we are. I think people are bombarded more with these images and these ideas of how to be and how to be successful and how to act and those kinds of things. But people are also more aware that they're being bombarded by these things. For example, I know when I was younger, there was a specific idea of beauty. There was a specific idea of success. And if you were not, for example, if you were a female and you weren't thin and you didn't have all this luxurious hair and you didn't look this way and you didn't act this way, then you weren't considered a beautiful person. There were strict ideas that if you weren't this way, if you didn't have this, if you weren't in this form or this state in your career or in life, then you weren't a successful person. And I feel like now people are more aware of those things, that they're not necessarily true, and people are beginning to be more accepting of things. But so when I was younger, I was definitely bombarded with these things and these ideas, and I took hold of them, and I just decided if I was not this, then I was that. If I didn't look like the girls in the magazines, if I didn't look like the girls on TV, then I wasn't beautiful. If I didn't make all A's in school, then I wasn't smart. Because in order to be smart, you had to make straight A's. That was it. You had to get the highest grade. That was what smart was. And different things like that. So I learned that as a young child, and that began the all or nothing pattern of thinking, and it just kind of grew from that. It grew from that, and in all of my my situations in life, if I wasn't 100%, then I was 0%. And there was no percent between. And I just could not comprehend that. It had to be one or the other. And I think that's very detrimental to thinking, or to feeling. And then I got into my situations where I was unable to walk, and I decided it wasn't a in between. I was either walking or not walking, and if I was unable to walk right then I failed, and I would beat myself up about it. And it got to where, if I never celebrated the small victories, I always saw things on a big platform. So either I was successful or not. There was no in between. And when I didn't succeed in what I thought I should be doing, then I was a failure. I was broken. I wasn't working right. And it just became a very it just became a really lonely place to be, because I would distance myself a lot from things. I feel like there were times when I wouldn't even try things because I would not be immediately successful, so I wouldn't even bother. And there were times when I put myself into specific categories because I couldn't immediately do things. And so that all came from that all or nothing thinking. And I was constantly critical of myself. I was constantly judging myself every moment. And that just it just compounded, because then that compounded with my idea that, I'm not good enough. I'm not worthy. I'm not deserving. There's nothing to me. I'm nothing. It compounded all of that. So they just kept building and building on each other, and really dragging me down. I was depressed and I didn't even know it. And I feel like a lot of people are. There's so many people that are at some sort of level of depression, and we just don't even realize it. But we've kind of, and we've gotten used to it. And so, that becomes our normal. But there's so many ways that we can change that. And if we're really honest with ourselves and we really look at the places we're at, and if we really understand things, and we really take our time, it makes such a difference, and we can change these things. So when I talk about maybe all or nothing thinking and myself, and I'll talk about my recent journey. So, my EMDR therapist has helped me greatly in this whole scheme of things, because I really like to rush things. If I'm supposed to do something, I want it done right now. If I want to be successful right now, and that sometimes isn't going to happen. Sometimes things take a while, and for a long time I didn't understand that. For a long time I thought things were pretty quick. If you were going to be successful at something, things were pretty quick. So I when I first started to go to my EMDR therapist, I and me and her laugh now about it, because I went into her office and honestly I thought she would have a magic wand, and after a month I would be cured. I would be fine. This would all be behind me. And that's just what I thought. I thought I would go in, she would tell me a few things, we would do the EMDR therapy, 1, 2, 3, and I would be cured. That's not what happens at all. And looking back at myself, I can see how much I have changed from that point. But my therapist tells me, she's like, always realize that there are going to be small steps. Always recognize those small steps. Always celebrate those small steps, because there's nothing in life that's a giant leap, but there's just small steps to get to where you need to go or where you want to go. And and I think about things like that now. And my my mantra is, I'm doing the best I can. I'm doing the best I can. That's all I can do, is the best that I can. And that's true for anything and for anybody. All we can do is our best. And that's all we can do. And that's what we're doing. So we need to give ourselves a little grace. And I think that's the most important thing that we can learn when we're thinking about reframing this mindset of all or nothing, of extreme, the mindset of extremes. I feel like we need to stop and we need to learn and think about the small steps that are required. Because if you think about a ladder, you don't immediately jump to the top of the ladder. You have to go up the rungs, each rung. And it's the same thing. If you have a goal, you're not going to just jump to that goal, but you're going to take the necessary steps. And, yes, you may not accomplish that step at that moment. It may take longer than you're thinking, because we're not guaranteed time. We're not guaranteed a time frame. It's all personal. So, we can't say, oh, in a month we're going to be here, or, something like that. It may not happen that way. It may, but what if it doesn't? If it doesn't, it still can happen. It just may take longer. And that's the thing we have to understand. We have to understand time, and we have to understand our abilities at those times, because they may be different. I'm thinking of myself, and we'll give that example of being able to walk. When I was first starting to walk, there's so many different steps, and you don't realize, because we're so used to it, and we don't even think about it, and it just comes naturally to us. But having to learn each individual step, having to learn how to bear weight on your legs, and then on one leg at a time, and then learning how to take a step, because it's not, taking a step is not just one motion. You have to do so many different things, and having to learn each thing, and then being able to take a few steps to walk a little bit. And that was definitely frustrating, but it was definitely, it would make me very angry that I couldn't just stand up and walk. And, but I had to stand up. I had to learn how to shift my weight. I had to learn how to kick my leg out to take a step. I had to learn how to bend at the knees, and I had to learn all these different things again. And so, yeah, my point in saying all that was that you can't get to the end of the goal without taking the steps. And that's very important for us to learn, I feel like. And also just to try and get rid of this idea that things are either 0 or 100%. I know that has affected so many different things in our lives, and it even to the point where I know some people, there are people that are said to be, quote unquote, too much. Oh, that person's too much. I just can't handle them. Oh, they're just too much. Can you believe them? And that's so detrimental to people's health on both ends of those comments. Because we're all individuals. We're all we're all people, we're all human beings, but we're different. We're all different at the same time. And there's no set standard that if your personality is above this standard, then you're just too much for a person to handle. There's lots of people with big, bold personalities, and that doesn't make them too much. They should never quiet who they are. We should all just be ourselves. Be as loud as you want to. Be as bold as you want to. If you have high expectations, have those high expectations, but you need to also know the consequences of having high expectations, just as you need to know the pros of having high expectations. You need to just understand those kinds of things. But you live your life out loud and be proud of who you are. I think that's very important. I think society has, because of this 0-100, all or nothing kind of thinking, society's put restraints on people that if they're above this standard, if they're above this level that we've set, then they're just too much, or they're just too big, or they're just too bold, or maybe they're just too emotional, or we just can't handle that because they're too sensitive. So many different things. And that's not the way life is. And I think society's really limited us to those specific ideas and those thoughts. And my suggestion is to just be yourself. It's so much easier. It's so much lighter. It's so much freer if you just are yourself and don't worry about what people say. If people say you're too much, if people say you're overwhelming, well, then you know what? They don't have to be in your circle if they find you that way. But that doesn't mean that you need to limit yourself to fit in a box that they've concocted. That you need to limit yourself to fit into a mold that society has made. That's just not true. And we need to stop thinking that way. We need to stop thinking of people who express their emotions, who express their feelings as being too sensitive or too emotional, or, we need to stop thinking of that as such a negative thing. We need to accept that men cry, that men are sad, that men have those emotions, that women do too. That women cry and women are sad and women have those emotions, just like we both have. We're both happy, we're both joyous, we both struggle, all of these things. And that's what makes us complete human beings. And we need to love those things about ourselves. We need to nurture those things about ourselves. And we need to accept those things about ourselves. And we'll talk more in the next few episodes about self-acceptance and about self-love and those kinds of things. But, I just think we need to reframe our thinking and change our perspectives of how we see each other. It's not just this or that, all or nothing, but we need to give each other more grace and give each other more kindness and love. And that's to ourselves and to others. And so, yes, if I can say anything, I would say that we should try, and I think maybe try this week. Try this week and see if you can't listen to yourself and look at yourself and how you're thinking and how you're reacting to things. And when you see yourself maybe saying, oh, well, I can't do that. I never do anything right. I never think anything right. I never can do anything, or I always fail. I'm always just so stupid. When you hear yourself or you see yourself thinking these things, stop and maybe say something different. No, I tried this. I wasn't successful, so I'm going to try to be different, or I'm going to try and do something different. Let's find a different way to accomplish this goal. Let me look at this in a different perspective, and maybe I'll have a different thought about this idea or this goal that I have. Try and look at things that way, approach things that way. When you see people and when you see people that are different than you or that maybe have a different way than you do, don't immediately say, oh, well, this person is bad because they don't think like I do. This person is bad because they're so bold and so out there. And, don't think like that. When you see yourself thinking like that, stop and say, wait. I shouldn't be thinking like this. Help me to learn. Help me to understand. I want to know more. Maybe I can change. Maybe I need to change. That's the first step, just acknowledging and recognizing that maybe I need to change in the way that I'm thinking about this. Be it this person, be it this situation, whatever it is. And I think that would be a really good thing for us to try this week. And just a different mentality of accepting ourselves and not being so judgmental of ourselves, not being so hard on ourselves. Just remember that to get to a goal, there are steps that you have to take, and every step needs to be celebrated, and every step needs to be acknowledged. There may be a struggle. There will be a struggle in certain areas, but we need to acknowledge those struggles and work with those struggles. That's the important thing, working with the struggle. So I want to thank you so much for joining us today. I hope that something that I've said has been helpful for you. I hope sharing my story with you and things that I've thought or things that I've done have maybe helped you to see things differently in your life. And I ask you and invite you to stop by and check out my Substack at Melody Parrish. See what I write, see what I'm thinking. Let's start a conversation. And just remember that whatever you're going through, whatever you're facing right now, you do not have to suffer alone. Thank you.